Hey everyone, let me just adjust my mic. Okay, so we are back, and this is last stream of this week, and we'll try with some of the APIs which is available on in Angular 16. And to start with, if you remember last stream, we actually upgraded our Angular to version 16.1, and we also upgraded our NX version. We saw how we can do that. So today, first thing, let's try out one of the new change which has landed in 16.1.0, and it is again related to input. So last time we learned about this required property, but if you go to the definition of input, let's go back. Right, so we have required, and then there is a new property which has landed, which is called transform, which is like takes a function. So you can see a function with which to transform the input value. So if you want to, let's say, transform the input value to another type, earlier we used to do the same thing. So we used to actually write this code and then transform the input. But with transform function, we can actually do it like in the same value. So let's go ahead and give it a try. Let me just, yeah, sorry. Input. Let's see what we can do. So let's see. Mm, I'll just create another property, not a setter, but I'll call this as its category, which is, let's say, type of Boolean, right? So one thing about HTML, or we can say property binding, is you can actually pass any value and it will accept it. So to see that, let's go ahead and do one thing. I'll just say, hey, this is category, right? So I'll just keep it as its category, input is category, and I'll say this is value of type false. And let's implement the onInit lifecycle look. And here, constructor NgOnInit, and let's do console.log category, not category, but category. What's up? Yeah, also I have to import onInit, compiled, and let's go back to the orders. Let's see. Here, login. Let's add some product. Let's go to the cart, checkout, and we should see it on console. And okay, we have to place the order, right? So let's press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Expiry 12, 1, 2, 3, and numbers, and your order has been placed, and we should see. Okay, we haven't done anything with orders list, and we can do it here. Sorry. So here we can see the value is false, but we can actually go to orders and we can pass this value. Say, hey, this is category, and I can do false. Because this is string not assignable to Boolean. Is this a good example? Yeah, I mean this works. I mean this is not failing because this is not type strict type. This is by default strict type. So of course this will this will not allow any to have any other value. But let's say if you are not on strict mode and you can actually pass the false value like this, like this is acceptable in case you don't have strict mode enabled. So what you can do in this case is you can actually say, hey, transform this value. So you can say transform, and then you can actually pass it as a function. So let's see an example here. So we have this transform, and you can really look out for any examples here. So transform. No. So there is an example here. So you can see, hey, this is value. If value is 1, 0, this is a good example actually. We could have actually taken this one, right? So let's see this. So we have this as is category, and let's say this is 1 or 0, like one is true and 0 is false, and we change this to number. But we can transform the value here. So I can say here transform this value which you are getting, and we can say if value is 1, same example, but and input decorator arguments have resolved to a string or an object literal could not determine input transform. I'm missing something. Yep, I'm missing this because it's a function. So transform value and must have a type. Okay, so let's say this type is Boolean, and this category has no initializer. That's absolutely fine. I can uh, I can work with that. So I'll just say this is not strict format, and the value which you get out of this, because you're saying, okay, let's transform this value to Boolean. Let's see the value, right? But we have to change at one more place. We have to change here. Now we can pass 1. Number is not assignable to type Boolean. Why? Because it is transforming this. Yeah. Okay, so we have to pass of type Boolean, and then we get a number. Let's see. Let's save this. Let's go back here. We already have console.log. Let's verify. And we got 0, right? So because we are passing false, false means 0. And if you pass true, so you can pass true. And then if we do that, we get 1. So this is how you can actually use this transform method or transform property, which is available on category. You can do anything with this because it's like this is where you define the input type, the value of the input type which you'll get. So this is Boolean, but we can transform this to anything else. And there are few existing or default transformers which are available. So if I go to angular.io, probably it should be updated by now, or we can actually check it here because they are in Angular Boolean attribute and number attribute. Okay, so these are two transformers which are already available. You can actually use this one, transform, and then an attribute. So let's see an example. So it says transforms a value, typically a string, to Boolean, intended to be used as transform function of an input. So you can see it's actually written that what is the usage of this. Same, there is one for number, right? So you can do here. So if I go to number attribute, you can see it says transforms a value, which is typically a string, to a number. And these two are already available, but you can actually write your own as we did here. But if it's just a Boolean, you can actually remove this and use the default one. So I'll keep an example for both where we have one with the default ones, right? And here I'll just say, hey, this is Boolean attribute, and I'll say this is valid and we get like what should we transform it to. So boolean attribute, it will transform to true or false, but we can actually change this one, right? So we can keep this as a number, or because this will transform a string to boolean, so we can, yeah, so we can say, hey, this is type of boolean, and let's set the default value. And this we can change, or we can keep it as it is, but there is an example which we can see. Let's say we can say, hey, this is let's say we have status 1 or 0. We can say, hey, this is value of type number. If value is 1, we can say, let's change this to string, and we can say if value is 1, it means delivered, and if else the value is shipped, right? So this can be a real-time example, and we have to just change here. We can say this is category is 1. Let's go ahead and check it out. We should now get the transformed value, which is delivered. So earlier we used to actually write an pipe to do this, or we used to actually uh, write some function here in your component to do that, but you don't need to. I mean, everything can be taken care by your input now, and it reduces the number of lines of code which you have to write basically. And if you see, I mean, with Angular 16, the whole, or after Angular 15, the whole idea is you should write as much as less code as possible. So this is another API 16.1. Let's go back and see another some of the APIs of Angular 16. Let's talk about signals, right? We saw some of them, but not everything. We saw how we can create a signal. Then we saw how we can use two signal, and then two observer, right? So there are two different APIs. But let's see one more, right? So here I'll create a signal, and I'll call this signal as status, and which is equals to, and has a default value. So Angular core, and let's write a constructor and on init, and let's have some buttons on it, and I'll create few buttons and just display the status here. As this is a signal, we have to actually call this function, otherwise it will not be unwrapped. And let's create our button, and on click of this button, I'll say this is delivered. So basically what we'll be doing is we will update the status of value of the status. We'll mark this as delivered or shipped, or probably return, right? So whatever status we have, delivered, and we can see how we can update the values. So shipped, and this is delivered, shipped, and what we have, return. Because I can do it with a single method as well, but write some code. So here, let's say if we want to update the value of the status, we can use, there are two APIs which we have. One is like set, so we can actually do this dot status dot set, and we can set a new value, right? So if you see, so it says directly set the signal to a new value and notify any dependents. And if you want to update its value based on the current value, we can actually use the update. Right? So let's do shift, and the third one is returned. We'll see probably small example of update where we want to like update the value based on the previous value. So let's mark it as delivered. Let's mark it as shipped. Let's mark it as returned. So here, just scroll this down. So if you see, I mean, let's go to any other screen, right, where we have some values. So we can see an example. Where do we have any buttons? Okay, product, login, to cart. Okay, we have everything on here. ORG product, add to cart, add to cart. Okay, we are not updating anything here, but that's why there is nothing which is happening. I mean, generally what happens is in case you have something to re-render, what will happen is you will see something getting updated, like your entire component tree, which is getting updated. But when it comes to signals, I mean, it's you can see actually this is very smooth as well, because of course it's just updating the local version, or you can say the only this value. So once it comes to signal, only this will be updated, not anything else. So signals can actually move the change detection to a very minor level, right? So it's not going to affect your entire component or even your entire component tree. But this is with the set API. Let's see an example where we have a counter, right? So we have, let's say, define a counter where we want to actually update the value based on the previous value. So I'll say, hey, this is counter and this is type of signal. So, and I'll create a button or create a function, and we'll say, hey, this will not use set, but we'll use update because we need access to the previous value. So this is previous value. And similarly, we can have decrement, and we can say this count -1. And we can also define a default value. That's what I have done here, which is 0, right? So default value for count is actually 0. And we can display this here. Mm, so we have to access the value, so we have to call it as a function, otherwise nothing will happen. Similar to what we do with NgRxJS, right? So with RxJS, until unless, let's say if you have an observable, until unless you don't have a sync pipe, it will not unwrap it or not call the subscription. Same concept applies here. So you have to remember that, okay, RxJS, a sync pipe, signals, we have to call it as a function. And I'll say this is increment, and this is increment function, and I can say this is decrement, and this is decrement function. Let's go back to the UI. Let's say increment, and you can see the value being increased, and let's call decrement, and you can see the value being decreased. But there is one more thing. Let's move just to try this out, right? So what in case I just mark this as change action strategy on push? What do you think, it will work? And why Angular compiler? Let's change this to change detection strategy on push, and you can see it works with on push change detection strategy as well. So signals actually doesn't care about what is change detection strategy actually, but it can re-render the values which is updated. irrespective of what kind of strategy you have. In future, you will be able to just kick this out. In case you are using on push, sorry, in case you are using signals, you don't have to even worry about your change detection strategies. It will not matter. I mean, around Angular 17, we will get signals. So we'll get a signal path based component. Probably this will be the property signals true, which was there in RFC as well. You can actually go ahead and read the RFC, but it's not available yet. So right now we have standalone true, and around Angular 17, this will become default. So you don't have to define that this is a standalone component. The component will be standalone by default. So this is again small signals API, and let's go ahead and see there are few things which is available in NgRx as well. So Angular, no, I wanted signal. Okay. I thought there is signal store as well. Maybe store dev tools, migrations, recipes. Strange. I thought there was something related to signals as maybe I misread something because I don't see anything related to signal. Interesting. I don't see anything related to signals, but uh, I, we can actually just walk through the component store because this is another very good API which you can use. And I haven't looked at component store for a long time. So in case you need your local state, uh, after signals, I don't think so we need it. I mean, there might be some comparison between component store and signal, but yeah, here component store versus store, but there's nothing about store and signal. So with component store, you can actually also have your local state for a component, which is possible with store with signals as well. But let's give it a try, right? So let's try a simple example from component store and see what it does. And to do this, I'll create another component. I'll not mix everything here. Let's generate component, and I will call it as component or no um, state state component. Yeah, let's call it as a state component. Hmm. So just use small s. Basically, a component having its own state, right? So it is not going to impact anything else. So here, of course, we need few things. We need to set up the component store, and to do that, we can actually just do ng add or npm install, and then you can go through the overview and installation. So let's do this one. Install. I have to stop this server because I'm installing a new package, and then we can go through the initialization. So component store is more like a replacement for a service with behavior subject or subject, because if you remember in past, like when uh, people thought like, okay, having a global state is not a good idea, so many teams what they used to do is they used to create a service with behavior subject or replace subject, so they can show the same value, right, or share the same state with others. And that caused many issues, right, because it again uh, whenever the value changes, it will cause the change detection. And to avoid this, NgRx team came up with this library called component store, where your component can have a local state, so you can achieve the same thing which you used to do with with behavior subject or replace subject, but in a better way, in a more standard way. But there are some drawbacks of using component store. The one of them is, of course, you cannot use basically your dev tools. So Redux dev tools, you cannot actually basically see them. You can you also have some advantages. Of course, you can still go ahead and read the value from your global store. So if you have selectors, for example, we have like a user selector, we have card selector, we can go ahead and still read those values using the API which is available. So let's go ahead and create it, and let's walk through how to do it. So first thing first, we install the package, right? So the package is installed. We have generally there are, if you go to this example, it says, okay, you have to create a service, and then service extends some state. We have to define a state, and then we can actually go ahead and implement this state in our component. So we generally provide this as a component store into your component. But it doesn't stop here. You can actually move this providers to your parent component, and then your child component can also have the same state. Basically, it's a good idea, or it's a good replacement in case, let's say, you already have a bigger app and it's now very hard to implement the state management into that application. So with component store, you can actually start from bottom to up. With NgRx, we generally, what we do is we can go from top to bottom. But with the new APIs, for example, you have now create feature APIs, I can do it at feature level as well. But when it goes to component level, that's where really component store shines. So let's go ahead and try an example, right? So we can actually see here. Let's create a service. So I'll create, hey, this is generate service, Angular service, and I'll call this a state service, right? So state service, and then we'll define an interface. Okay, somehow this is outside. I'll just move it inside the state folder. And here we'll define a state. The state is nothing but my interface. So I can say, hey, this is export interface, and this is let's say this is, let's take the same example, right? So as we did it for the orders component using signal, and here we will say this is order status, and I can say this is ID number, and um, status string. So this is what we did, the step one, right? And then we can say, hey, go ahead and implement the new sorry, extend, not implement, but extend this service. So component store, so we have to actually extend this class component store, which is of course comes from NgRx component store. And where here we can say, okay, what type. And once we gave this, this is where we are going to provide the default values. So status, let's say ID is 1 and status is blank. So in terms of NgRx store, this is my initial state, right? And then I can let's say, hey, give me the status. This is my selector, so I can select the value here, or I can actually do it inside the component as well. But I can also have some method to update the values. So this is where we can see read and write APIs. So read we already did. So we have this API which returns an observable of my current status. For writing, we have something known as updater. So here I can say read only update status, and here we can say this dot updater, and this is state, and then we can say update the status here. So in terms of NGRX store, this becomes my reducer, right? So if you remember, reducer was the one which is responsible for updating my state to a new state, and it returns the value. So it means whoever is actually has subscribe to this status value will receive the new value. So this is about right. There is effects as well. So in case you have some API calls, you can actually wrap it here also. So to do that, let's see an example later on, but let's work with these two properties or two methods which we have created so far. And now to use this service in our component, will go to the state component. We'll say, hey, add this as providers, and the state service becomes provider. And now to use this, so you can see we have uh, movie store, like we have to inject the store same as we do with NgRx. The only difference is we are injecting a store which is available from NgRx store. Here we are injecting the service which is available here. So I can say constructor, and I'll say public state service, and to get the status, I'll say this is status, and I'll change this. So I'll say, okay, state service dot status. This is to get the status value. I'll just render here, and then we can have a button, and I'll say this is to update status. And let's see our service, state service. Basically, it should get a property, get a method, get a parameter, right? So it says, okay, update status, and movies. Yeah. So this one is my parameter. Yeah, status is my parameter. So I can go back to my component. Let's implement this method, get status. And here we can say state service dot update status, and let's change it here. I think, yeah, it's okay. I mean, I was thinking about like having multiple buttons so we can update the status and see. So I'll say, okay, this is delivered. This is shipped, and I'll change this to shipped. Let's save this, and let's go back here and value here status, which is of type string, and then pass the status. Change this, and let's render this component because we won't be able to see anything here otherwise. So first I have to add this, as I'm going to display it in the order component. So let's add it here after this one, and let's add it to imports array, state component, and it's solved. Let's go back to our app and see how it looks like. One more thing, we have to start our server because I had to stop it. So let's start the server again. If you see, we are actually almost doing the same stuff which we did with signals, now with component store. So in case you already have a component store, you don't need to use it. I mean, this is what I can see it from here, but you never know, right? You may need, in some cases, that you may need to actually like take your setup and just not with the only one component. In that case, the component store can really help. So if you are planning to actually expand your or expand the area which like from where your state resides, then you can actually still go ahead and do with component store, or you can actually have a signal with the service. I have never tried this because I have to read about it as well. I mean, how there is a blog from Manfred where he wrote about managing state with signals. Probably that will be a good read. I'll read it over the weekend. Let's go back and refresh. So we have this one delivered, shipped, and you can see, I mean, I'm still able to update the status, but one extra thing which we did with signals, right? We marked this component as on push and it still worked. So that's the same advantage which we can get as of now. I mean, with the component store also, you can mark this as the instruction strategy on push, and it will make sure that it runs the change detection only for this component and still work. I mean, generally, if you have this type of code with change detection strategy on push, don't use signals, don't use component store, just have normal properties. With component with change detection strategy on push, it will not work, right? It will not update or re-render anything. But with component store, of course, it's a local state management, so you can do this. With signals, signals will update the value like which is available on your view, and that's it. So this is how we can achieve the same thing using component store and signals. Okay, what else we should look at? uh, we still have some time, so let's go ahead and do one more thing. Let's set up the state for orders, right? And we can say, okay, this is add new order and get order, and we can move this into common. So we already have some store defined here, so let's do one for orders, and let's define our action order RTR. And if you think about like any other functionality you want to try on this code base, feel free to raise a PR. So you can also learn, and others can also learn that what you have, how you are implementing things, and we can all learn together, right? And you already have the access to code base; it's open source, and available for everyone. I'll say, okay, this is const order action, and we will use create action loop. NgRx store. So string and then creator function. Okay, let's see. Create action group. Okay, source order and then events. And then here we can say load order, of course, will be one, and add order or place new order. And we don't have anything like for order as of now. So let's find the interface. So I'll say, okay, this is order, not here. Interface.ps. I'll say, okay, this is export, interface, not schema, order. And then we can say order has order ID, order ID, user ID, products, like which all products exist here, with products array, and total amount, right? Of course, we need to have total amount, and date, of course, status, if it is dispatched, delivered, user ID is okay. I think this is enough. So this becomes my order. Let's import, let's add props and empty props as well. Great, so this is my action. I need to export it. Then we need our order dot state. Yes, I'm not going to create an effect because we don't have any API call here. So I'll just use the reducers and uh, state. That's it. Sorry, reducer and a feature state. So to do this, we have to start with, of course, our state first. I'll say const space, and this is my order state. And I'll say what it will contain is orders, is order array, and what else? This is my state, so I have to also add a new orders, and it will be added into orders array. Yeah, that's fine. And what um, we can have error state if there are any other errors string, and then we can define initial state, which is orders are empty, errors are empty, and that's it. Let's define our reducer, which is initial state, and then on place order, we will say, okay, put this new order into array. And we don't have load order as of now. Let's wrap this up. So I'll close this and I'll call it as order reducer. Let's import order action, create reducer on function. So okay, so our reducer is ready. So we just have one which is called place order. Next, we have to create a feature, right? So we saw that, okay, we can create a const order feature, which is equals to create feature, and we'll use the create feature one. Create feature. Mhm. Hmm. Create feature, and then we have to pass the name, which is order. Then we have reducer, and then we have extra selector, right? So we can pass the extra selectors, which is so this is the way we have used it here. So nothing to worry about. Let's go to the cart, not cart. Where we did it? Yeah, product. So we have an example here how we can use extra selector. Okay, I was almost right. I was very close to writing the correct code without looking at the API. So this is select orders and select error, and then we need to just pass or provide this to here. And we have to export this one because we need to register this feature. We have order feature, order reducer, and let's go back to our route where we have registered everything. So here, as not here, app route, and let's see what we have done with product. So we have registered our state here, or feature here. So we can say provide state, the feature name, and that should be enough. So we have to do it for orders. Let's go back and do provide providers, and I'll change it. I mean, I know this is wrong. We have to mm, do few more stuff before we can do this. We have to export these APIs. So whatever we have written so far, export star from lib, and then we have orders. We need interface. Let's just export the state so far, and we also need action, right? Because we have to place an order. So I need orders and action. These are three things which we need. And let's go back and register this into my route. So here, rather than actually registering cart feature, we'll say, hey, go ahead and register order feature. And let's save this. And let's place the order now. So two things which we will do to just make sure that things work. We will use private store, and I'll just call this a store. So we'll query or we'll use a selector to see the data. Here I'll say this is my orders. Orders equals to this dot store dot select. We don't have to do this. And here we can say select orders, and we can actually import it from store. Okay, we are not using anything from common, so I'll say okay, this is import from org/common store, and what we need is select orders. I don't have orders here. Let's see. Let's by the way, component store used for around 400 LOC before signals came in. One of the greatest example of how we can. Yeah, Michael is right, because of course we had nothing, right? I mean, and the component store was the best thing which was available at that moment. And signals is not like which took very little time, right? I mean, we took 15, almost close to 15 versions of Angular to arrive at an API which can solve the issue which actually NgRx and component store was actually solving from the day one. So it's not like I'm trying to say that don't use it. I'm just saying, okay, it was the best choice when there was no option, but now Signal is more powerful, and you should choose like Signals if possible. I mean, because of course I being a contributor to the project, I really love whatever NGRX team works on, and I have also contributed few API. I mean, I did one for data, but I mean it's been a long time. Even I contributed to NGRX. I try to now contribute via the contents. So okay, so we have orders here, and let's go back to the cart, because this is where we will place the order, right? So we'll go back. Just okay, close this, and state orders cart, and we already have a button, right? So we last time added this button checkout, and then we navigate to this checkout. So here I'll also add, we are already using store, so here I'll say okay, this dot store dot dispatch, and this will be not cart action but orders action, and this will be place order. And here we have to actually now pass the orders. So you can see we can create an order object here. I'll say ID is one, status is placed, and then products, we already have the product. So if you uh, see, we can actually get the products from, let's go back here. So we have this card dot product details, which is nothing but the array of this one, and we can actually pass to the checkout. So we don't have to actually go ahead and select the state again. And what it says is, because we it is complaining about we don't have any parameter here, we can do that. I mean, so I'll say okay, this is products, which is product array, and now this should stop complaining about it. We have orders, and we can say okay, this products is actually this products. And what else? Total is, we also have total. So if you see, we are actually calculating the total. Are we doing it here? We are doing it in product list. I think product list, this is where we are doing it, right? So no, not here. Why we are doing it in cart component? Because it should be on checkout. So no, this is the checkout page. Am I wrong? Cart, checkout. Yeah, I mean, we should write that code here. We have everything available on the checkout page and pay and place order. Yeah, exactly. So this is where we wanted to do it. So I'll just undo the changes which we made at the cart. So cart component.html, just undo. Okay, I think I did more than what I wanted to, or then undo this. Undo this. And this is fine. Okay, so we wanted to actually write this functionality at the checkout, not here. And we already have the store here. This cart has implicitly array type. I'm not sure why. I have to, anyways, I'll check this later on. But we can here, we can say, okay, this dot store dot dispatch and order action dot place order, and then we can pass order. So we'll say ID1 name, okay, status placed, total we can get it from the API. Products we'll get from the yeah, we'll take this as a parameters. So what we need is products, and which is product array, and we need total, which is number, and why this name is name status. What I'm missing, expected comes from order, which is declared here. Still complaining about it. See if I have some incorrect type into the store. So check out. Okay, we don't have anything called name. We have a user ID. So I'm not sure from where this came in. Yeah, user ID, and I'll just say this is user ID 2. Complains about total because this is total amount. Pilot sometimes screws up everything. I mean, you can see it just adds anything randomly, and date. So I'll say, okay, this is new date, and let's pass the needed value, right? So we have this place and order form, and click place order. What we need is we need card dot product details, because we already have everything inside this ng container, so we can actually access this value. And we need total amount, and total amount is something which we get from a pipe. So if you see, we have this pipe, and does this still work as a parameter? I have never tried it, but cannot. We can give it a try. So cannot have a pipe in action expression. This is good to know, and I had never tried it. So what I will do is I'll not take total from here, but so total amount we can actually do. We can get it on from multiple sources, right? I mean, we can actually just subscribe to this cart and then calculate the amount, total amount, or do we even need it? I mean, we can actually calculate at runtime whenever we want to display it. So as of now, let's keep it to 0 and just pass the products with this. So we have place order, and what should else we do? And we should redirect, right? So we should use router. So here, private router. Once this is done, once order is placed, let's go back and I mean, generally this should be an order success page, not the orders, but we just want to see if the order is available on the orders page, right? So that's what we want to figure out. Orders we already have subscribed. No, we haven't. So let's go ahead and do that. We will just say, okay, this is orders, and you can also do one more thing here. I mean, rather than like store.select, which returns an observable, I think there was something around signals. Let me see. So NgRx select signal. NgRx not selector. Select signal. Signals what is announcing integration with NgRx signal. Yeah, this is what I wanted to see. There is something called something for signals. So this, yeah, this one, select signals. So rather than just using this, I can say select signal and then this returns a signal. This is amazing. This is mind blowing. So now to I mean, even the advantage is I can actually go ahead and update this any value here, and I still like can update and re-render the values again on the UI. So let's go ahead and select our signal. I mean, so this is not an async pipe anymore. This is a signal. So let's display. This is the API I was looking at. So I couldn't find it in the doc somehow. I mean, probably missed something, or I was just typing the signal maybe. So let's run the application again. So this was one of the new NgRx 16 API which is available. So I think we covered all the APIs of NgRx store effects, and we also talked about component store. So here I have this. Hmm. So let's go back to our application, all products. I'll just log in because we have to place some some orders. View cart, checkout. Okay, there is some error. Cannot read properties of undefined. What happened here on checkout? Did I miss something? Maybe. Let's see, because I was making some changes, unwanted changes here. Orders, uh, checkout. Yeah. So store.dispatch. Huh. Okay. So this is interesting. If you remember what I mean, this is this is this is something which we have already actually this issue we something which we something got previously as well. Can you guess the issue? Meanwhile, I'll just go to the code and change it. So I'll register it on checkout. Guessed it. What we did wrong. So we tried to call, hey Lars, uh, how are you? Happy to see you here. I'm just like trying to I'm just like trying to show how to struggle writing code. So and almost like finished with the stream. Let's see products, add to cart. Let's go back to cart, checkout, and let's enter some card number. name on cart, play and place order, and here we are. So it says orders because we have just printed. Oh, nice. So we have just printed orders, like we haven't unwrapped it because it's an array. So of course we should be using ng for to show the value. So let's go ahead and do that. I mean, cannot. So I saw some progress on spectacular, Lars. So you have been doing something so far, or you're just going to add new APIs in version 15? Because of course, just it's been a long time I have looked at spectacular. So here, component.html, we can use the pipe listen to see the actual value, and I'm not sure why this came in. I'm not trying to log in anywhere. Let's log in, go to products, add product. Let's go to the cart, checkout, and I'll just, this is not username, but this is helpful. 12, 5, place and pay. Here it is. So we place the order and we have order available on our orders page. Awesome. So we completed, like we started from like displaying the products, then we ended up adding a lot of feature. We added cart, we added checkout. Now we have orders. We can actually just have a nice UI around this and show it on the user's screen. Like I mean, with the user information, I have to just check the UI. I mean, I don't remember how it looks like because Amazon and most of the applications, right? They have different UIs. So I'll probably refer one and try to come up with some design, some UI. And in case you want to add this, just feel free and let me know on the repository that you want to do this, and you can create an API around this. Because if you remember on checkout, we already have a table to display the product details or products. You can probably reuse that component here as well. So yeah, what's the number one mistake? Okay, so yeah, Lars has yes, I released stable version 13 and 14, but now I'm migrating to spectacular feature testing API that makes good use of Angular standalone APIs. Okay, what's the number one mistake when using ng I mean, what's the number one mistake? I mean, I can think of not using the track by, which can cause you performance issues. Uh, what else? I think that's the one mistake I can think of. Maybe I'm wrong, so you can correct me, last. That's it. Oh my god, I'm relieved. I answered the right answer. I hardly do that, so I'm feeling like very proud of myself. But yeah, I mean, that's it for the day. I mean, thanks again, Lois, for dropping by. So I have my daughter's birthday tomorrow, and my wife is still like decorating the house, and I'm doing the live stream, and we'll do that. Like we'll not have any stream tomorrow and day after. We'll meet again on Monday, and let's try some CSS. Why not, right? I mean, I'm just trying this stream, trying to learn something new, so I can try the UI as well. Probably I have to struggle much writing this code. Let's struggle much writing the CSS as well. So yeah, that's it. That's it for the day. Bye everyone, and bye Lars, and bye Michael. Thanks for dropping by and having a good discussion about component store. Right. So I just don't wanted to badmouth component store, but somehow I think I did. And people should not be scared to use component store. Use component store until unless you adopt signals, because not everyone is on Angular 16, and you already saw the value which component store provides, right? The similar functionality which you can get, but of course you have to write a little bit more code. And that's it for the day. See ya.